But before I did that, I wanted to uh, have an even more genuine and raw kind of way to remember my emotions at that time. And I thought the best way to do that for me was to write a song. So 2 days after my best friend died, I wrote my first song. Yeah. And I think that kind of changed everything.
Hello, and welcome back to the scheduled quarterly episode of Climbing Mount Stupid. Thrilled you decided to tune in as we're back with a banger. On today's episode, I sat down with Ben Wolf, or as I know him, Benjamin de Wolf. You'll probably be hearing this once he's already dropped quite some music and has been starting to perform live, but this was recorded about 2 months before his first single, Ultraviolet, dropped, which is the same day as this came out. Among other things, we talked about why he decided to drop medicine and the opportunity to go to Cambridge Medical School after a life-changing personal loss and go all in on music and singer-songwriting. I've known the guy for 7+ years now, and his story is honestly one of the most unique, admirable, and wholesome ones I know. I hope you get to know him a little better throughout this conversation, as he's one hell of a guy who I'm very lucky and honored to call a good friend. Without further ado, Ben Wolf, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy. Mwah! I'm not sure if we've got any good conversation left in us.
I think we do.
Damn, dude, I think the last 3 weeks, we've talked more and met more than the last 3 years.
Or probably longer. Yeah.
Probably longer, huh?
Yeah. Because there was always like half a year in between, and now we've been doing it quite consistently. And so we've been going quite strong for the last couple of weeks, so I don't think we should... there's more than enough stuff to cover.
I think so too. Yeah, dude, there's been periods that I haven't heard from you in probably more than half a year to a year.
Yep.
Because you've been all around the place and just keep following your thing and doing your thing.
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, I think, I've been off the radar for quite a while. That's something that I always keep doing for some reason. Like when I'm really focusing on myself, like trying to find what I want to find, I find it just better to really kind of block out all the external stimulus. And so sometimes I just go off the radar. But good friends always come back. So
that's true.
We got this weird relationship where it's very low maintenance, but when we do meet each other, it's very, very fun.
It's very, the quality is, the quantity of meeting is not that high, but the quality is fucking through the roof.
Yes.
When you go off the radar like that, do you ever spend time really consciously taking time to think about what your next steps are, think about the future?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Well, something that I learned recently, going through a tough personal situation, I have learned the fact that I do tend to kind of alienate myself, like either way. So going off the radar is very beneficial indeed to think about my future and everything, but I am going to try to do that less and less in the future, because it isn't the best trait of mine to have. But yeah, I mean, being quiet on my own, like it gives me a lot of time to think about where I want to go and what I want to do with myself. Self-development is massive for me. It's probably the driving thing for everything, what I'm doing right now at least. And there's almost all of the time is filled with thinking about what I want to do in the future. Yeah.
That's fucking sweet, man, because I think, I'm not going to speak on behalf of people, but I know for me, I really like to get distracted by the little rectangle screen that you carry in your pocket the whole time, by the laptop that's recording this right now, by just distracting yourself
Technology.
from your own thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it can lead to a lot of beautiful things when you just choose to put that aside and really spend time with your own mind and with your own, with your own desires, what you really want to do.
No, definitely. I agree with you on that totally. Like where technology, well, not necessarily all technology, but there's like social media and all that kind of stuff. It does really, it really kind of pushes forward other people's dreams, and like it makes you think that that's also what you want. Like, I mean, social media influencers, all of the respect in the world, I wouldn't be able to do it, but often I think a lot of people project their own dreams onto what they see on their feeds, like, and which is a very inaccurate representation of their lives, even, let alone anyone else's life.
I mean,
So yeah.
like these people, it's not that their lives are just solely lying on a pearly white beach in Bali with
course,
like 3 naked chicks next to them. Like, the stuff isn't real.
Yeah,
like
it
that's
is.
maybe a little snapshot of a little moment of a photo shoot, but I mean, social media is it's kind of, I've come to realize this more over the past 6 months, but it's fucking toxic, man. It's such a bad consumer of your time, and it's such an addiction for so many people, of whom I am one.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I think everyone is kind of aware of the fact that this isn't their genuine lives, but because it is the only thing that they project, like, well, that they put out in the world, like, I do think, even though there's kind of something in the back of your head, like, oh, this, this is like a one-off holiday for them as well, and they probably just took like 60 pictures and kind of spread them out like tactically, and like just made it look like, oh, I go to Greece every 2 weeks, like, that's not and we all kind of know that, but because often, like, when we're scrolling through our feed, just like wasting time, this is like at the moments that you're as bored as you can be, like, you're trying to fill up your time with looking at pictures of someone who's on holiday having a like great life, and you're just like, why am I not doing this? Like, well, because you're probably doing something important. Like, well, I mean, I'm not saying that isn't important for them, but just it's kind of wasting time to kind of project your own dreams on something is completely not accurate. Yeah.
And as you said, like, now people are starting to realize it, because I worked in a kind of influencer-based clothing brand, and the travel bubble, Instagram bubble, of when Instagram kind of boomed and these content creators made these beautiful pictures, then people really thought like, oh my god, this person's alive, this is insane. And then now people are happily starting to realize, because this whole internet thing is so new. Like, our generation grew up with it, but it's still new to us. Like, there's no history books that can come close to anything that has the internet involved with its culture.
Fact.
And so I think with maturing, that you all realize that these beautiful pictures that you see behind your little screen, that's how these people make their money, and they make 1,000 pictures, and then they choose the one, and then they fucking spend half an hour editing it as perfectly as they can. And then that's how they make their money, but it's not reality.
Well, it is a skill. I mean, there's we were watching comedy yesterday, and like, not all of those jokes were as realistic as some others, but it is like a massive skill. So I wouldn't want to talk down on influencer behavior, I guess, or the way they do their jobs, because at the end of the day, it is a job. But I mean, what you said about, like, once you see someone online on Instagram establishing their brand, like, it's at that moment where all of a sudden, like, this is becoming real. It's like, why do you need 10,000 followers on Instagram to become like recognized by people? Like, can't you just recognize yourself and like stop? Yeah, like, I mean, because for me, this is like very personal, obviously, because this is like,
I love your Instagram page, by the way.
So full of pictures right now.
No, but it's just a blank canvas with one decent picture.
Yeah, well, I mean, and picture. that's like, I want to play along with the game, right? Because like, I know, well, I it's not like I want to play along with the game, but I have to play along with the game, because we do live in an age where, I mean, social media is so, it's so influenceable. Like, it's just a big influence.
It's just there. It's there the whole time. Like, the standard reaction of me when I pull my phone out, when I'm on the toilet, when I'm on the bus, or whenever, even when I'm talking to friends, is just mindlessly. It's like a guitar chord. You don't even have to look, and you know how to open Instagram, or how to open
that's funny.
YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true.
Yeah, no, this Instagram wave is, I'm kind of happy that it's fading, but it's undeniable that you have to put out content on social media this day to be relevant.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be heard.
Which is true. Which is why I play along with the game. I don't do it with the most enthusiasm, which reflects my Instagram page with all the great pictures on there. But
all the great picture.
All the great picture. Well, I mean, I think that's probably my personal one you're talking about, because I do have 3 pictures of my artist.
Bro, I didn't even know you had an artist page. I was I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I tagged you on my story. I was like,
yeah.
fuck it, let's leave. You posted something else,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I saw which is a great fucking brand name, by the way, the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Ben Wolfpack, or is it Wolfpack?
Thank you. Yeah, it is the Ben Wolfpack.
It just fits. It's a jigsaw puzzle.
Nice.
Shout out to Daniel Sloss.
And, yes.
There were 3 posts you had, and with one, we've talked about music this whole weekend.
Yeah.
And the times that we met before that.
Yeah.
And you were saying, man, like my producer is kind of my therapist, and I've got 50 hours of fucking musical therapy actually in me, which is so beneficial to me. And then he kind of starts to really know me as a person right now, so he knows how to trigger me in certain ways to really fucking get my veins popping and shout into the microphone.
Get the
I
emotions.
saw that at one of the
and
then you had I think it was the last post.
Did you see the way I looked at the end? Because that was actually not planned. Like I wasn't even aware that I was being filmed, and this was like the last verse in like my first single, and there's like, it's just a very, very quick rap, but I was like so angry at the time, and like, but I just knew like there's this, it's weird because once you start off well, I mean, this is for me personally, at least, I can't talk for anyone else, but once you start the recording off well, it's kind of like, okay, this is going to be a good one, right? So like, you're already kind of hyping yourself up while you're doing it, so like, it even intensifies the energy even more. And then like at the end, like when you're like, ooh, I don't think there's any mistakes there, I was like,
I saw it, man. Because it's like a 6-second clip where you go from like anger, where you see a neck vein popping, to ooh, satisfaction.
Yeah, that was
satisfaction.
That was a funny one. Yeah.
So because your producer's name is Jim, right?
Yep.
How does he, when you're recording, how does he like kind of figure out which emotion he wants to hear from you, and then how to pull that from you?
Yeah,
because that's with all the musical background, that's a psychological, very high EQ kind of skill to do.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's great, and I think this is also something that really distinguishes him from a lot of other producers. I mean, I haven't really worked with many other producers, but I know it's a very psychological kind of game, I guess, where he knows what the vibe is. Like, I present the vibe, and like we talk about it, and so he knows where we want to go, but he has a very specific ear for like kind of color in the voice, which I still have no idea what that means, but I'll get there eventually. I've only been working for a couple of months, but he knows what color he wants to hear at a certain time, like how it would kind of balance out with the music, and how it would kind of balance out with the story. And by kind of getting to know me personally over the last couple of months, like, he knows my trigger points, like, which I'm not even aware of most of the time, but like, he'll say stuff like, just imagine that you're in this dark, like, saloon room. I mean, if it's something sad, for instance, like, he would say like, just imagine if you're in this dark saloon room, and you're playing the piano, like, just like bent over a bit, you're kind of slightly drunk, and you're like just hitting a couple of like really sad chords, and there's no one else in the room. And so like, kind of get that picture in your head. And it's funny because once you're in the vocal booth and you're like isolated, basically, you feel it's a very serene kind of feeling where you're just very into the moment at that time, and all you can hear is this guy's voice, like, through the headphones, and you don't really hear yourself because you're not talking at the time. And so you just really put yourself in that position. You close your eyes, or at least I closed my eyes. I also to turn off all the lights as well in the studio, so that I'd have like no input whatsoever from outside. And somehow every time he comes up with a different scenario, which just fits perfectly, and it really triggers me. No, it doesn't trigger me, but like, it triggers some emotion in me, which is just like right. And then once we get that emotion, he'll just go like, okay, more of that, less of that, like, and then we kind of start doing retakes, and it gets better and better every time, and then we end up with a final product.
That's sick, dude, because you, like, it's not a normal transition that you've had into music. Like, far from it.
Yeah.
Because you're like 15 study credits away of graduating with a medicine diploma,
Bachelor's,
bachelor's
which is
bachelor's
kind of
medicine
useless,
diploma.
but yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
because you need
diploma.
to have a
Yeah.
master's before you can be a practicing doctor in
Mhm.
Belgium. But then you decided, man, I'm like 3 courses away of my diploma.
Mhm.
I kind of like music more. You know what? Let's just fucking just fucking go for music.
I mean, it wasn't the fact that it was like 3
'Cause
because
it's a gutsy move.
yeah, it is a gutsy move, but like the way that it sounds then is like it's kind of an uninformed, well, an uneducated kind of decision, which was absolutely not. Which I know that that's not your like that's
No,
not
no,
your
no,
intention, but like I'm just saying. Yeah, I was 3 big subjects away from getting my diploma, or at least well, partaking in the exams and everything. But yeah, I mean, music was and still is all consuming. And there was, I remember talking to my dad about this because he was, I mean, obviously, both my parents have a very academic upbringing as well. Both of them are doctors. Um, so he was like, well, I can respect your plan A, but you still need to have a plan B. And like, as long as you're doing your plan B doesn't slow down the progress of your plan A, you should do both. Like, I know you can, and I know I could. Like, if I didn't want to grow as quickly as I have and still am in music. So the decision wasn't like, oh, should I do these 3 subjects and then continue music? It was more like, should I take this very fertile ground and just like start sowing right now, basically, and not wait for 3 months when I might not be in the same kind of headspace and whatever. So yeah, I mean, it was 3 subjects. I didn't see it that way. It is pretty close, but it was just so far still because it was just uninteresting. I mean, it was interesting, but it wasn't interesting for me as a person, like as personal growth. It wasn't interesting. So the decision to do 3 subjects and then to not do 3 subjects was, yeah, I mean, it was a ballsy move, but it wasn't at the same time.
But it kind of makes sense. I mean, I've known you for a long time, but I haven't been very close to you for that whole time.
Well, physically, yeah.
Physically,
yeah.
exactly. But the transition to music, in hindsight, for me, makes a lot of sense because for being able to be a singer-songwriter, there's a couple of skills that a person needs to have, and then obviously you need a good team or person to work with.
Which is probably one of the most
producer.
important ones, yeah.
Exactly, right? Because, I mean, the whole producing of media or songs or whatever is such an expertise on its own. But if you look back, you went you in second year of high school, which is around 14 in Belgium.
Yeah, 13, 14, yeah.
13, 14, you decided, I want to go on a boarding school in England, which we've talked about a lot. Like, if you hear in Belgium, I'm going to a boarding school, you think, you immediately make the association, okay,
your parents
his
not
parents
want you?
hate him.
Yeah.
His parents just, they made a kid. It's like, we'll take a dog, but we kind of like it for the puppy years, but then we don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely not the case because you sorted it out yourself.
Yeah.
And then you had this whole 4-year experience in England, which sharpened your English, because you're still to this day, and don't mean to seem cocky, you're the best English-speaking Belgium I've ever met.
I mean, yeah, I don't, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what else, so, yeah, thank you.
And then we met each other through dancing.
Yep.
Which was in Leuven at Eikeraas, I think.
Yes. Hip-hop.
Ruben Pasture.
Breakdance.
And hip-hop. And then very coincidentally, we signed up for the same dance camp in the summer. We did 2 dance camps.
Yeah.
2 years with each other. And I remember there was a talent show at the last dance camp, which I think I was 17, so you must have been 15 at the time.
Yep, 15.
Because I'm 23 now, you're 21. And I remember, the talent show was fucking fun and jokes and cute stuff, teenage people doing stuff. Yeah. And the only real serious thing was you finger picking and
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, and that was so. I think you played more songs.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
there was
did. Yeah.
even there was a girl that needed to cough so bad that she didn't want to interrupt the performance, that she went out and everyone thought that she was crying because it was so
Wow, I
beautiful. And
remember this. Wow, this is.
everyone wasn't even surprised that
Yeah.
she would cry because it was very, very fucking beautiful guitar playing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true, I guess. And looking back on it, it is indeed like a very, and as you said, like England gave me a very, yeah, a decent knowledge of the English language, and guitar was a big, I mean, it always has been a part of me. Um, but it's weird because while you're in this cycle, because I was, well, not in cycle, in this journey kind of, I was very academically focused. So I always thought like I need to get into top subject, like need to get in top classes for my sciences so I can go to the best university and, well,
I mean, you didn't
why,
go to the
yeah,
best university, but
yeah,
you did get top in your
yeah.
classes.
And then indeed, like looking back on it, does make a lot of sense. But when you're in this, like as sometimes it's just easier to stay with what you're familiar with. It's just, yeah, it's tough to kind of really open that door and kind of peek through and kind of realize that, whoa, like what I've been thinking the last couple of years is just maybe not as true as it was. So looking back on it, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, I used to write really interesting essays in my English classes, even though I hated the subject. But at the time, that's just like, well, I mean, I'm good at writing. Like, what does that mean? Like, and that's not going to make me a good doctor. Well, I'm not a better doctor, at least. So yeah, it did make sense. That's a fact.
Because one of the, like when you were away in England, I think sometimes I would talk to friends, that I had this friend that I knew from dance class that he fucking got offered a scholarship at fucking Cambridge University for medicine, which you said yesterday is kind of the pinnacle of medicine in Europe and in the Western world.
Yeah, in Europe. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he finally didn't get in because of something very unfortunate.
We can talk about that.
I mean, if you're free to talk about it.
Yeah. So I was as I said, like I was very academically focused. I had no intention, because I'm just very scientific. So it was always black and white. I need an answer. Like there is an answer as long as I find it. And it's interesting because I was trying to find this answer the whole journey along, and I never really found it, because I guess the answer was, what do I want to do? And medicine was not the answer. So I couldn't find it in that field. And so then my best friend, 2 weeks before I had my last exams, my end exams for IB, she passed away. And that was a big kind of turning point in my life, where I was confronted with not asking like, where am I going to find myself in medicine, but like, am I going to find myself in medicine, or am I going to find myself in what I'm doing right now? Like, am I going to become the person I want to be once I'm done with this part of my life? Is this a logical transition for me? Like, does it make sense for me to go study in a very, very academic place, surrounded by not the most like-minded people? And I guess I kind of came out of that whole experience just asking different questions. Just not am I gonna find it here, but like what do I want to find? Like where do I want to go? And again, looking back on it, it did all make a lot of sense. But without that experience, I would have never kind of taken a different approach to my whole view of my own journey. So yeah, it changed a lot. Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of sugarcoating it, because I mean, you said your best friend, this girl was your girlfriend.
Yeah. Well, not at the time, but she was before that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was 17 years old, and she died very, very abruptly and unexpectedly.
Meningitis. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was very surprised by you saying that the first evening that because you came from England, you went back home.
Yep.
And
second evening after she passed away. Yeah. And
then that was actually because you're in this whole environment of boarding school abroad, come back home.
All alone.
I guess because of the traveling and the unbelief that you're having the whole trip home.
Mm-hmm.
When you're home alone in your room, in your
Mm-hmm.
childhood room,
Mm-hmm.
I guess reality just sinks in like a brick.
Well, it took me maybe maybe even a year. I'm not really sure. It took me a half year or even a year to kind of accept the fact that she wasn't there. Like I even went to her. I went to her funeral and everything, and I saw her, and it still didn't sink in. But there was a certain feeling where I was alone in my room. I had been surrounded by friends and just kids my age for the last 4 years, 3 years, very closely, not really having any personal space to kind of think about what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, like you're in this room alone, faced by a weird reality for an 18-year-old kid. And I just felt like I need to write something down. I need to write down my feelings. I need to write down a couple of questions for myself. And so I decided that instead of writing a letter, well, actually, I did also write her a letter. But before I did that, I wanted to have an even more genuine and raw kind of way to remember my emotions at that time. And I thought the best way to do that for me was to write a song. So 2 days after my best friend died, I wrote my first song. Yeah. And I think that kind of changed everything.
I can imagine. I mean, that's such a real experience, especially to someone who you're so close to, that at any age would change someone. But at such a young age, it really can drastically just force the train onto other rails. And that's what it did. So then you decided to not pursue medicine in Cambridge. You decided to do medicine in Hasselt.
Yep.
Hasselt in Diepenbeek.
Well, I didn't really decide. I didn't get the grades to go to where I wanted to go. So, and I wanted to be, it was actually mainly I wanted to be back home. I wanted to be surrounded by people that I grew up with and that I loved, because all of a sudden you're kind of faced with...
Dude, you need a support system.
In a situation like that. Exactly. And even though back in England, the support system was very well organized, I don't think it would have been capable to really support me in that moment. So coming back home, being with my parents more, because I do have a very close relationship with my parents, being able to talk to them more was essential. So I just decided, well, I need to be in Belgium somewhere. So it ended up being Hasselt, yeah. So I decided to do medicine in Belgium. And it took me about 2 years doing that study. Well, actually, I took 1 year. I did biomedical sciences because you have to do the entry exam in Belgium before you can start doing medicine. And the first time I failed because I had this grandiose illusion where I'm like, oh, like I just came from a very good school, blah, blah, my sciences are great. And my biology, physics and chemistry are, well, not really comparable to Belgian level, but maths is...
and physics?
Well, physics I found so interesting that I actually took the time to learn it on my own. So I did have a very good understanding of that. But maths is something that I lacked because of the way that I was taught in England. But so I had this grandiose illusion of I just came back from a good school. I don't need to put any work in to kind of pass this thing. And then I go, that's another hard hit where you like realize, oh shit, like I didn't study at all, and now I'm gonna have to do a whole year of university course which I don't have any interest in, because I basically fucked up myself thinking that I was so great. So I did biomedical sciences for a year, and then I switched to medicine. So I skipped the first year of medicine, so I started straight in my second year. I took in a couple of extra subjects to kind of catch up with the rest, but straight away, like I realized that this whole idea of becoming a doctor was a weird... I mean, I forced it on myself, but this was not a personal idea. This wasn't like a personal goal of mine. Looking back on it, at the time I thought this was really what I wanted to do, but as soon as you start doing this subject which you've been working towards for the last couple of years, and you start realizing like, wow, I am not happy here, like I really was not happy doing medicine, it forced me to think about what I was doing again. And then it took me another well, 1.5 years to actually have the balls to make the switch.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I mean, there's so much security in just finishing a medicine diploma and having
Definitely.
the security of a stable income.
Yes.
As opposed to entering the music industry.
Yes. Yep.
Without even having any prior releases.
Nope.
which is a gutsy move, but it's not just a move that fucking heads, music industry, tails, I'll fucking stick to medicine.
Yeah, no, for sure.
No, I know it was thought through. And I mean, when we first met back in Leuven, you were telling me about it, and you kind of let me hear with an earpiece in one ear, and I liked it. And then this whole weekend here, you've been showing me your lyrics. You've been
explaining.
Yeah, you've been playing sounds and tracks.
Yes. Yeah.
And explaining your writing process. And dude, like, I'm so confident in you entering this space.
Yes.
Because I think there's a lot of, I don't want to, because I know nothing about the music industry, but I'm still going to generalize. Because, talking shit is fun. But I do think there's a lot of people that have a misinformed idea about entering such a huge music industry that, like you said, you need a good voice, but there's less good pens than there are good voices. You need a very good person to match with, to click with, to be able to record what you want to portray. You've got the vocal techniques. You have to have, you don't have to have, but you do have a pretty solid guitar skill. And you've got a fucking worth ethic like a Dutch farming horse, man.
That's a funny comparison.
You just keep the cart pulling on your own, because I know that I know you, it doesn't seem like work for you, because you wake up and you want to start writing.
I love it. Yeah.
And then I think the people around you, I've never been to a studio session. I probably don't want to be, although I would like to see it.
Yeah.
I think my presence would just
plummet
the creativity level in the room just to the core of the earth.
Yeah, it's an interesting vibe
I would like to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, for sure,
like that,
for sure.
because how you've been explaining it the past couple of days is just very, very, very cool to hear.
Yeah. And I think of all the things you mentioned, because there are some very factual stuff in there, but I think the work ethic is probably the most important one. And I think it's only because of the fact that I was, first of all, forcefully confronted with my own idea of achievements by the death of my best friend. But then second, making the switch from medicine, indeed, like leaving this kind of very stable future, very predictable future, which obviously gives a lot of sense of security because you know what's going to happen in the future. But those two things really made me realize what I had to lose. And I am very fortunate where I am already. I've been given a lot of really wonderful opportunities, and I hope that I can pass those on to my kids as well. And I am aware of that. Like, I know what I can lose if I don't really put in all the work. And even not having a voice, a distinct voice, because I wasn't aware that I had a distinct voice before Jim started telling me this, and before people at uni started coming up to me, asking me can you send me anything, without even me knowing who they were. So I wasn't aware of this, and still not being aware of that wouldn't have stopped me to put the work in. Like, if you have a story to tell, or if you really love doing something and you put the work in, even though it might not feel like work at the time, that's by far the most important one, I think. And I do notice some differences with other people in the industry that I have been in touch with up to this point, and that goes anywhere from photographers to other artists as well, that some people have a really beautiful voice. They know perfectly how to use it. They know how to portray their story in an interesting way. But often, first of all, the story isn't a very honest reflection. It's more of a projection, which is kind of, for me, that takes away a lot of the art in it. But the work ethic, I I've heard stories of people having a recording session, a vocal tracking at on Wednesday, and they just party from Sunday to Tuesday, 3 days straight, and they just sit in the studio and they've just completely lost their voice. And not even is that like a sign of disrespect to all the people who have like whose job it is to put your voice out there.
Yeah, your performance directly impacts the pockets of the people surrounding you, trying to make that musical.
And that's a lacking of work ethic, I think, because I guess they just don't realize what they've been doing for the last 3 days until they are in the studio and are just confronted by the fact that they can't even record a single line. And so they lack in work ethic.
Work ethic, though, is something that has been drilled into you by the school, by the boarding school in England, because I'm interested in education.
So am I.
Because I think, like you, and it's like I can't disagree with you. It's probably one of the most innovated sectors in the entire world is the education system. It's not because you can use Smart School or a digital platform to like distribute emails and notifications to students more efficiently that the education itself is being innovated. And I think you're the only person that I know that's been in an education system outside of Belgium. My ex-girlfriend went to a school in South Africa, which I think also handles the British
same
system.
Yep.
Yeah, and I went there on a vacation with her and her family, and by chance there was a open deurdag, a look-in day.
Yeah.
And I was astonished. I was just astonished. There's so much infrastructure to cater and really, really develop, because every child is different and they all have different interests and things that trigger that curiosity. And the infrastructure to really feed that curiosity in a few different major ways, be it sports, arts, science, whatever, languages, it's there, and it's there to really fully support the kid in whatever it wants to pursue. And I think that's such a more superior environment to learn in than what we have here in Belgium, because we said there's nothing really like that British system in Belgium. It just does not exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. Yeah,
it's not there. And how do you think that work ethic got cultivated in England and then now just gives you this horsepower to just...
I don't think it was really... It wasn't really it didn't just come into existence in England. Like, it was there beforehand. I just put in the work to really get the work ethic in the UK. I mean, just to give you an example, like, so as you said, I was 13 when I first had the idea that I wanted to go to boarding school, because I knew I was doing Latin at the time and I really did not like doing Latin. And I realized with the current work ethic that I have, and this at the age of 13, so I was pretty young. I don't know how I got to the idea of kind of having this way of thinking, but at the age of 13, I decided, like, well, I'm not going to be able to continue in this system because I won't get anywhere where I can, well, for me, that I can be proud of. So at 13, I started kind of questioning my work ethic. Then I made my way to the UK, which we've talked about how I did that loads of times, so I don't know if we should cover it now. But in England, it was a very military discipline routine, day in, day out. And I was a boarder and I was an international pupil, so I was basically there all the time, apart from expat weekends, long weekends where you had to go home. But I was there all weekend, all the time, and getting into this system of routine, I think also kind of not... It's weird because you're doing it all for yourself, but the system is so well supported. Like, it's so supportive that before you even ask the question of, do I want to actually do this? Do I want to put this many hours of my time into sports, this many hours of time into my academic studies? They kind of already decided it for you. So you don't need to ask the question of, like, well, am I working hard enough or whatever, because you better be sure that, I mean, we got three big hot meals every day just to fuel the machine. So it was just constant working, and kind of, so I think it kind of developed from there. And then coming back to Belgium, really having to fall back on myself, being in just having my own kind of apartment somewhere, where I, lived while I was at uni, kind of falling back on yourself and realizing that you're not really doing much. Well, I wasn't really doing much with my time. I wasn't studying, period. Well, I was studying because I got through most of my exams, which I took part in. But realizing I wasn't really very efficiently using my time the way I should be using it, then kind of even further exaggerated the work ethic. And then finally transitioning to a place where I did want to be, where I did want to learn as much as I could, where I was learning a lot about myself. I kind of used all that momentum and the whole idea of work ethic to, I just implemented it, I guess. And now it's just a way of my day-to-day routine.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's healthy that it's been ingrained, but that is such a profound kind of level of self-awareness for a 13-year-old to know that this Belgium system just is not going to work for me in the long run. I know myself, and I kind of see how the education bubble works.
Yep.
So if I have the opportunity, why not just seek education somewhere else?
Well, it wasn't really seeking education anywhere else. I think first the main thing was because my father had also gone to a boarding school, and this is like with the monks back in the day, so that was like some really tough stuff. And I have always looked up to my dad, and I know this guy has a crazy work ethic. So I kind of...
If you didn't work hard, you got molested.
I kind of... for me as a young kid, it was kind of obvious in a way that this school kind of made my dad, well, it shaped my dad to a certain extent in the way that he is now. And that was something I respected a lot. So at first it was more of, I want to go to boarding school. But as you said earlier, Belgian boarding school is, I mean, it's not the most... fertile ground to really nurture.
I can't even imagine that something like that exists. And even if I do imagine that it exists, I think it's just this little patch of ground that's been stuck mid into the 17th century.
I mean, I don't want to disrespect anyone who's a Belgian boarding school, but...
So many people hear this who are in Belgian boarding school.
Yeah, probably. I mean... I wanted to go to boarding school, and so my dad said, well, if you're going to go to boarding school, you're not only going to come home every 2-3 weeks, then might as well just experience a new culture, a new language, a new whatever. But because of the fact that I already lived in the US for 2 years when I was, I think, 7 to 9, I did already have a decent knowledge of the English language, and... it makes a lot of sense. Like, the UK is known for their incredible school system. So it wasn't necessarily recognizing that the Belgian system wasn't working for me. It was more my specific situation isn't working for me. And I think the most obvious way for me at the time to kind of change my own situation was to go to boarding school, which I'm very glad for that. I got the opportunity financially to be able to go abroad and study there. But it wasn't my intention to leave the country or anything. Like, that just happened, and I just went with it. Like, that's what I wanted at the end of it. But yeah, it is quite a side. Well, yeah, I don't really I can't really put my finger on why I felt that way at the time, why I really wanted to change schools and everything, because I remember telling my friends at the time, like, oh, I want to go to boarding school and everything. And I mean, first of all, everyone was like, wow, do your parents really hate you, as we said? But second, like, kind of just horror, like, in general, like, all these like 13-year-old kids, like, just on the playground, like, minding their own business, just going with the flow, going with the Belgian system, just hearing from one of their good friends, like, I actually need to leave this place to be someone that I want to be, was pretty interesting. I don't know how I got to that point. Probably has a lot to do with the way my parents raised me.
Bro, it's a very odd thing for a 13-year-old to think that. It's not a bad thing, but it's
Yeah,
very
it is
exceptional.
odd. Yeah, it is, and I think that has to do with, I mean, some form of maturity in a way. I'm not saying that I'm the most mature person that I know.
You are the maturest 21-year-old that I know, like by a stretch.
Yeah, but like it was always that way. Like, I always had older friends. Like I would always just, I could kind of make sense of my own opinions and my own view on things more when I was around more mature people who were more open to other things. And I think I don't know where the switch happened, to be honest. But I did have a very mature kind of view of myself at the time. Yeah, that's a fact.
I mean, scratch that. Not one of the maturest 21-year-old, not one of the most mature 21-year-olds that I know, but just one of the most mature friends that I have. Because, like, dude, the past weekend we've been talking about things and
therapy.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, I just got out of a relationship, and
so did I.
Kind of the best advice that I've heard is you talking about this Enneagram.
Let's plug that. Yeah.
Personality type. There's 9 personality types according to this main like cause.
Yep.
In this psychology. How would you call it?
They just feel this. Yeah.
And how you kind of put reason and logic into such an emotional situation by just
referring to
the system. And then I took the test on my own like a day later, and reading the stuff that I read, it just made so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, because I was actually also thinking like, well, am I actually saying the right stuff right now? Because yeah, you are a very good friend of mine, and I'd gone out of my relationship only a week before you did, so it was very coincidental that this was very like fresh and everything. So I kind of, obviously I couldn't imagine how you were feeling, but it was still very fresh how I was feeling at the time. And I was thinking like, what's the best way to kind of deal with this? Like, are we just gonna, say everything's gonna be fine, and like, the standard, the casual, or just, I mean,
7.5 other billion.
I was like, she's such a bitch, like, bro, like, I mean, I'm sure you had a very wonderful time together. So like, just like, why do you have to kind of, lower this person to a certain level just to make you feel better? That doesn't make sense. So surely it makes more sense to kind of like, just give people a tool for them to know themselves better. Like as we were watching the comedy last night, like we're so infatuated by the idea of being loved by someone that like we don't take the time to really love ourselves. And Enneagram is, I mean, each to their own, but for me, it's a very efficient way to really get to know myself if you are ready to be confronted with yourself.
Yeah.
And
it's
I think
a scary mirror to
of course
have, like, flat
and loads of people in that situation would not be able to deal with it, but I know you, so I also know that you are a very rational person even in emotional times, and so it would make sense to give you rational information to base your own opinion on. Like I'm not going to give you my opinion, because what's that worth? Like I don't know what, just give the tools and that's what I want to do with the music as well, is like just give the tools for self-development, just confronting yourself with yourself. I
think that the song what was it, the one that where you talk against
I should tell him this one's not going to be released for a long time. I'm sorry.
Keeping the nuggets.
Yes.
After the first few EPs. Smart. No, yeah, I'm very lucky that I've got to hear some of the.
I'm
stuff.
lucky. I'm lucky that I can share it, because sometimes I feel like wow, like because I'm aware that I love what I do, I am aware of that, but I also am aware of the fact that many people just in general are not doing what they really love doing. So like for me to kind of be all like stoked about what I'm doing right now, like sometimes I just feel like, maybe I should just quiet down a bit, like just not be super enthusiastic. And which is weird because it limits yourself, because like I don't need external validation to know that I love doing this, but to be able to have really close friends who also support the idea and who are enthusiastic for me as well is just like another, like, okay, I'm doing something that I really, I should be doing.
Right. And dude, when you talk about something with so much passion as you do about music and the enthusiasm that you share your lyrics with, and you say, yo, dude, fucking check this beat out. Yo,
just being hyped about my own.
With this lyrics, what do you
that's
think,
important.
bro?
Yeah.
But like, the enthusiasm and the passion is so contagious that even, like, I love my dad to death. But I'm sick and tired of his history lessons that he just dishes out free.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, I was on a call with a friend of mine, and you were here outside with my dad for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, I gotta go save Benjamin from this history lesson. But then you just said, man, it was so cool to hear from this guy who, after 35 years of being in the law circuit, of being a lawyer and then a judge, and now he had this hobby of cartography, anti-cartography, and then he just talks so enthusiastically and happy about it. It's contagious.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
Even for people that you don't think would like to hear about it.
Yeah.
The energy that you give over is just it's uplifting, man. It's not this thing that people think, man, I fucking wish this guy would just shut the fuck up.
Well, it depends. It kind of because what you're saying is correct. It is contagious, but it depends on where you are situated in your own life at the time, because I also have a lot of good friends. I mean, I even actually kind of lost a very valuable relationship with one of my best friends recently because of this, is that sometimes we are in such a, and I am aware of this, so I respect it, so I'm sure it'll be fine at the end of it, but sometimes we are in a position where we know that what we're doing is not what we want to do, but we're still playing it safe and, just like going with it and like putting up with all the hardship. And then you kind of start meeting this person who changed like, as you said, your dad's like been in the law circuit for all this time and all of a sudden like made his hobby his career. And that's a big, bold move. And for someone who is not able to make that big, bold move, jealousy sometimes occurs.
We're creatures of habits, you know. And then, like, again, great conversation yesterday. I like to think that there's abundance in the world. It's not because one person is successful or happy that there's less success or happiness for yourself. Yeah. And I don't know, dude. Every time I hear, dude, the first time that we met back on the old market in Leuven, and you were telling me about this whole fucking development that you've got going on, and dude, this is so Dunglish, but I fell out of the air.
I've never even heard that word before.
Dunglish, Dutch English, man. It's great.
Okay, that's interesting.
When you
Dunglish.
talk like this, and you kind of get the Flemish accent of course, indeed. Because your transition into music was so. You texted me about it. I think a few months before you really made a decision. Like, man, I'm really in a pickle and I'm in a moral dilemma. I don't know what to do. To pursue music or medicine. I think my advice was just, dude, you've got time till the end of the year. Just don't put so much pressure on yourself to make it right now. Yeah. But then I think the next time we really physically met, you were talking about recording. And you had tracks to let me hear. And I kind of knew the lyrics were not going to be shit, but then the first day we were here, you showed me on the terrace here above. Yeah. Dude, how the fuck? I can't understand. I mean, it makes sense with the English background, but what goes through your mind when you're writing these songs? Because I think they're so well put together. It's this jigsaw puzzle of like, it's almost not at that level yet, but I think you have very special choice in words, which just fit the meaning and the message of the song so well. So how's the songwriting process for you as a novice who's not even been
Yeah.
in this
Mm-hmm.
thing for a year? I mean,
Mhm.
you wrote your song when the first song you made when you were 18, but like really taking it serious like 9 months ago? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was about 9 months ago. It's interesting because I started because knew, um, I as we both have, I listened to a lot of rap. I listened to a lot of old school hip hop, and for me, always by far the most interesting and just touching songs have always been these stories which just like they start from the first word and they finish on the last word, and five-course meal and I'll take you through, as you were saying yesterday, really. And um, so having that influence, I guess, I started really first projecting what I was like, oh, I need to show people how good my pen is and whatever, which is fine, I guess, because it got me where I am right now. But I think the main kind of stepping stone I made in the progress of my songwriting um, would be allowing my, I guess, subconscious, because it's not really an active process um, of finding the right words. Like they just uh, it's weird to say. It's not like they appear, but like I kind of know what I want to say, but I have no idea of how I want to say it. So it's just like allowing yourself to kind of go with it, just like, just flow. Like, I mean, the first lyrics of the one you were talking about is like, met this kid the other day, he asked me how to write a song, and I would say, find out what the messages your heart wants to convey. There's no need to understand beforehand to portray it right now. And that's exactly what it is. Like, there's absolutely no requirement. Like, you can finish your writing song, you can put it to rest for 2 days, and you can go back to it and change it if you don't feel like the message is clear enough for other people. But there's absolutely no reason to think that the message has to be clear for you in the first place. Like, just allow it to kind of flow naturally, and see what you have to tell yourself. I mean, it's always a conversation with myself. I think that's the main thing. Like, I don't actively seek out any specific message, I guess. I mean, I do have messages which resonate with me very much so, but I don't seek out to write. Today I'm going to write a song about, well, not suicide, but depression and trying again tomorrow, which is another song. I don't actively actually look for that. It's like more of, what am I feeling right now? Okay, I feel shit right now. And we all do. A lot of the times, we never, we never really admit it. But once you do admit, okay, I feel shit right now, you can kind of make this song, which subconsciously is telling you to just hold on to tomorrow, and let it flow. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most of my songs that are really touching and really good are songs that I have no idea about what I'm writing about. And they just end up fitting, I guess. I mean, that's very bad advice for anyone who wants to kind of start writing, to like, yeah, it'll fit. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Stuff was fucking shit at first. Like, my songs were absolute garbage at first. Like, they were just like, so I came a long way, but I allowed myself to just let it flow. Just like, one of the people I respect I just respect like so much, Ed Sheeran, obviously, because this guy is like a legendary. I mean, he's just a living legend in the songwriting world. And he said this. He made this really beautiful analogy, which actually sticks with me all the time, and I always think about every time I'm writing a song. Is just, you're just this tap, and like you're gonna open it with every song that you write, and like at first it's gonna be like muddy, just shit water like coming through, and like you won't be able to drink it, and that's shit music. And I have loads of shit music. Like, I have 400 songs, of which probably only like 100 are like to the level of me actually wanting to work with them in 9 months, that's quite a lot. But yeah, shit water, and then you just keep the tap on. You just allow yourself to let it flow, and eventually, like, it will get pure, and it'll be shit at some times, and then if you keep the water running, it'll just be pure. So just let it flow.
Pipes need to be cleaned out at first before you can get the drinkable stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep, exactly.
Dude, Ed Sheeran is an interesting figure, man, because there's this picture of him in front of the O2 Arena with his guitar case on the floor and playing guitar on the streets and asking for money. And then there's this picture X amount of years later where he's playing in front of a sold-out O2 Arena.
Yeah, crazy.
And this dude is he's a fucking character, man.
And again, he has crazy work ethic. He does not, no offense, he doesn't have the looks. I mean, he knows that. Like, he's aware.
Great tattoo taste.
But he has, first of all, the craziest work ethic. And that's, again, reflecting on his kind of philosophy of songwriting where just let it flow. So because of his work ethic, he manifested his goal.
I guess that's the shittiest and best advice you can give to a songwriter. Just let it flow, because it's not like this step process and this can help writing and this can maybe open your creativity, but it's the truest one, though. Yeah.
Well, it's not even just songwriters, I think general. I think podcasts, I think comedy, I think any form of art, just let it flow. And I know that you're not a big fan of modern art, where you just literally just let it flow, you know?
Bro, the Jackson Pollock joke yesterday was just had me in tears.
Well,
it was so good.
Yeah. I have a different opinion about that, but yeah, I understand. But yeah, just let it flow. I mean, creativity is something very, it's just something very human. It's something very, very ancient. And it just works the best if you just allow it to happen. Like, no need to force it. Like I have like, again, like the songwriting is, sometimes I have to force myself, to continue in a certain direction, and that's a tough time to actually keep working on that one song, because once you realize, like, okay, I'm actually like really trying to look too far to find what I want to convey. Forcing it instantly kind of decreases the amount of joy you're getting out of it.
You have to keep having fun.
Yeah, that's the main thing. But if you allow it to flow, you have fun.
Are there certain things that you have to peek here? Are there certain things that help you with allowing it to happen? Because this songwriting is very introspective, and you really need to go inside your kind of psyche and consciousness and really fucking put your finger into the emotions.
Yep.
Are there things that help with doing that? Because if I'm looking at myself, I kind of like distraction, because I mean, I don't mind my own emotions, but
it's easier not to deal with them.
Yeah, it's easier not to deal with them, and it's easier to be distracted, but that kind of does get you out of touch with yourself. Yes,
for sure. I mean, we talked about this yesterday as well, like just allowing this kid in you, like I mean, we all have our child version, our very creative, our very ambitious, our very open to new experiences version. And within the Belgian system, at least from my personal experience, and one of the reasons why at the age of 13 I realized I need to get out of this is because really this kid is taken away from you. So really for me, it's being in a place, well, not necessarily place because it can happen anywhere, but being in a mind space, I guess, of where you allow yourself to be a little kid again, make mistakes, not be harsh on yourself, because we are often way too harsh on ourselves. That's just a fact. And it is easier to distract yourself, to not deal with your emotions, and to be harsh about yourself. But that's not the only two options you have. Like, you have a choice of allowing shit to go wrong, to play around, to splash paint on a canvas and sell it for a couple of million, you know.
No, fucking stick a banana to the wall with duct tape and have one of your millionaire friends evaluate it for $100 million.
But
to evade taxes.
Yeah. allowing yourself to make mistakes. I think that's probably the main drive. Well, yeah, the main ritual, I guess, before I start writing is just I walk upstairs or I walk to wherever I have my laptop and my guitar, and often actually that's an interesting one, because often I just play on the, like, I just jam a bit on the guitar on my own, and like I purposefully play chord progressions that I know, and I purposely play completely random shit which aren't even chords, and like just make no sense musically, and kind of playing along with those two side by side, and then realizing like, oh, if I put this finger here, or if I do this, like it gets this sound, and all of a sudden like you're making something which is full of mistakes, and something which is already very known to you, which is very familiar, and you're kind of allowing those two to overlap, where you have familiarity but you're also allowing for mistakes, and it just frees up the kid in you, I guess.
That makes kind of sense, because there's certain chord progressions that have a kind of inherent color to them.
Yep.
When you look at like emotion, it can be like everything you play on the ukulele is happy. I don't give a fuck what you say. But the guitar,
you've got
that
major
you played
chords and
yesterday,
minor.
though, like it was a chill kind of the thing that you played yesterday, and I can imagine that if you put yourself into a kind of emotional headspace by just fooling around with chords, that emotions might
overflow,
and kind of screw loose certain messages that you subconsciously kind of want to portray. Just loosens it up a little more. Like you said yesterday, you wrote your how do you call it, bachelor essay,
thesis
on the influence of music in the operating room. Like getting the music in the serious environment helps synergistically with the task at hand.
That's a fact.
Makes sense.
I actually wanted to go back on something that you just said about creativity. I think it's also very important, as you said, like the emotional part of you, like it needs to overflow. It needs to combine with the music, and I'm always, when I'm writing, in a very emotional headspace. There is very little rationale behind it. There is no trying to be clever about what I'm trying to say. It's really about, I feel this way, and I know that if I were to talk to someone about it now with this same emotion, I would probably say it that way. Like, it's just those kind of, it's a very emotional language. So that's probably very beneficial for the songwriting process as well. But about the bachelor thesis, which is also interesting, because if you look back on it, I mean, I wrote my bachelor thesis on the effect of music on the operator, and 3 months after that, I decide to quit medicine and do music, which is, I mean, it's it's not a coincidence, because
sign.
Exactly. It's, looking back on it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's also very interesting, because I am very scientifically educated, and my general point of view is also most of the time like scientifically supported, or at least the way that I understand it. But it was interesting to combine my love for music with the academic research that goes into making a bachelor thesis. And as you say, like, it's scientific evidence that, Mozart, Bach, 60 beats per minute allows communication between the two hemispheres to be maximum efficiency, which makes sense because people who study often use classical music, and they realize, probably not consciously, but they realize that they're being very efficient with what they're doing at that moment. And doing that kind of research for my bachelor thesis allowed me to understand my love for music better. Like, it makes sense that if one artist, or like 3 specific Baroque artists, have such an impact on human brains, even to this day, where surgeons who are performing laparoscopic training are just far more accurate and faster while listening to classical music than those who didn't listen to classical music. It's just crazy. Like, it makes sense that I like music. If it has such a big impact on the brain, it makes a lot of sense. So it was interesting to kind of combine the scientific and the social, the scientific and the artistic kind of points of view.
I've got no clue if this is factual, what I'm about to say, but there's this urban legend that if you're wife is pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
that if you play classical music around the
Yeah.
house, that your kid
Yeah.
grows up smarter or has an easier time learning or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. I mean, I remember watching this documentary of this. I think it's an Israeli kid who was, as a fetus, he was exposed to a lot of classical music, and I think as like a first birthday gift, they bought him like a classical piano, and like this kid, like by the age of 5, was composing like orchestras and shit, like really, yeah, high level understanding of music.
Real virtuoso.
Yeah, real virtuoso. And I mean, I guess there must be an impact, surely, on the neurological development of your brain while you're in that state of life and being exposed to that kind of music. I'm sure there is. I'm just not aware of. Well, I just haven't read the papers. I haven't done the actual research to back that. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, for sure.
I 100% think that because for me, the most grueling part of this podcast is the editing. And I think I'm just going to start listening to classical music now.
Yeah, you probably should.
It was
Or binaural
Mozart,
beats.
Binaural beats.
Yeah, well, Mozart, Bach, and there was one other guy who I don't know.
Vivaldi,
No.
Chopin.
No, it was like
Beethoven?
no, it wasn't Beethoven. I'm sure I'll look it up after this.
What I find very interesting is that you were describing the kind of creative process of from writing to bouncing ideas off your producer to finding a melody and tune and track that works with it to recording. And you were discussing hi-hats with your producer.
Yep.
And he said, yeah, man, I don't think this is I'm not sure if this is good for the Belgian market.
Yeah.
Bro, why are you even thinking about
No, this is the
market?
other way around. This is the other way around.
Oh, okay, was the other way around. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm just really intrigued by what are the next steps, because this is being recorded, what is it, September 8th?
I think it is the 8th, yeah.
I think it is the 8th.
Yeah.
So in a month and 2 days, on October 10th, your first single is being released, which is called Ultraviolet.
Unofficially, yes. No one knows this, but
I'll
go.
I'll bleep it.
No, it's fine. Some exclusive information.
We'll not talk about the future timeline, but you're not thinking of staying in Belgium for too long, or is that also confidential information?
No. I mean, that's very clear. I think if anyone listens to the actual music, and not the actual music, but well, I mean, obviously the music is also a level which is it's accessible to an international public for sure. But if you listen to what I'm actually saying, not the way I'm singing it, because I'm still not good at singing at all, but what I'm saying is, the language is sometimes just too difficult for someone who isn't either very, very fluent in English or who isn't brought up with English. Like, there's a lot of too abstract ideas.
A lot of stuff goes over the head if you're not acquainted with English.
But what you were saying about the hi-hats, I think it's interesting for everyone to know. I mean, so we were talking about, we were doing this really the tough process of really polishing the kind of song to 100% completion. And one of the things is, what you do is, like, every instrument that you use in the instrumental is kind of revised. Like, often it isn't changed, but we look at a certain sound of a certain instrument, a certain hi-hat, in this example, and we're like, okay, is this the best one for this track? Like, so we go through the whole catalog and everything. And so we were going through the catalog of hi-hats, and I think it was, the question was like, okay, so we can take this hi-hat and it can be very accessible to the Belgian market, and we can take this hi-hat and that would be more poppy and international. And then Jim just goes like, well, I don't think we need to really worry about Belgian market. Like, there's no real need. There's no need for us to focus on this market if we know that we can reach a much bigger audience. And for sure, again, it's not necessarily, it's like school. It's not necessarily like I wanted to leave Belgium, but I needed to be somewhere
in an environment surrounded by like-minded people where I could really flourish. And that just happens to not be Belgium.
It's
So
like the coffee shop analogy, man. You're not gonna have a lot of success if you open a coffee shop or a head shop in the middle of Saudi Arabia.
yeah.
You know,
It's
you need
too
to be
fertile ground for a barren place like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
You need to be in a place like Canada, or you need to be in a place like the Netherlands, where the environment just suits the endeavor that you're pursuing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that's, I mean, yeah. I would like to go abroad to the US, I guess, specifically ASAP. And I know, well, what's happening with the pandemic right now is it's going to be a while for me to be able to do that. But yeah, just ASAP.
Dude, you better fucking shoot me a message before your first live.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
How do you call it? Performance. I wouldn't want to miss it for the world.
Yeah. Bro, I'm going to invite like people like the canteen lady at uni. Like, no, there's no joke. Like, I promised her that she was gonna get backstage, like, cause she used to give me free coffee almost like every other day.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
Like €2. Like, I was saving, like, you know, for a student that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
like in
bro.
1 week that's €10. Like, bro, like,
and
you can.
We drink coffee more than we do water or beer. So like coffee is kind of the holy grail. Of the student.
And so she's lovely. Marie-Jean, shout out to you. But yeah, bro, obviously. And it's weird as well because I've talked to a couple of artists and asked them, like, because for me, I finish a song and I want to share it instantly with the people that are nearest to me. Not physically, but, you know, like emotionally and mentally and whatever. But it makes sense for me to have one of my first performances surrounded by as many people I know as possible, because I know for some people that's frightening, because you're really showing the people you know what you want to do, and that's confrontation and whatever. I love confrontation. It's necessary as well, but I want to share it. I'm too happy for myself. Like, I'm so happy about what I'm doing right now. Like, I want to share it with as many people as possible. I just want to share the happiness, I guess. So it makes sense to have my first performance with as many good friends as possible. So yeah, obviously, like, you're gonna be there.
Fuck yeah, I'm gonna fly out.
Yeah.
What were because you're thinking of going abroad? I imagine this is United States. This is not going to be England.
Well, it's
Or
either
you're still kind of figuring it out.
no. Well, it's either Stockholm, London, or LA.
Stockholm.
Yeah, Stockholm is a very it's very well, apparently, I don't know this, but my gym tells me this, that it's a very fertile breeding ground for new music.
Really?
Apparently, yeah. In Europe it is. And so, I mean, London makes sense, I guess, because it's a world really, really big city. A lot of people there, a lot of artists, obviously. But best case scenario would be LA. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the closer I can be to the most
Mecca.
Well, not Mecca, but like just closest to the experts as possible. Like, because I am very aware, and that's another thing, like, as an artist or in any craft, you need to be aware of what you can do, but you need to be even more aware of what you can't do, like what you don't know. And this is the Kruger-Dunning effect, what we were talking about, where the less you know about something, the more you think you know. And as soon as you start actually looking into this and delving into, like, as you said, you had no idea how big the music industry was, and neither did I, until you jump into it, and then you just realize, like, I know nothing. But so it's very easy for an artist or any craftsman to come into this business thinking, oh, I know everything, because you actually know nothing. And then realizing, okay, so I've got this amount of knowledge, but I need this amount of work. And you need to find those people who have not studied, but worked, have put the work in to be an expert in that field. And so you can build up your own kind of skill, and then you can add that one, and that, you know, and you can you have this group of people who surround you to be the best this part of you that you can be, and then eventually you can, you know, learn as much as possible. But you need to be aware that you can't do everything on your own. Like, and right now, like, I do maybe like 5% of what happens in the studio. All the rest is done by everyone else there, mainly Jim. But so being aware that I don't know a lot it makes a lot of sense for me to be somewhere where there's a lot of people who know a lot about certain things, because it just makes it more accessible to me. Like, great geographically, like, it just makes sense. Like, I want to go live somewhere, you know, in a certain area where there's just a very dense concentration of those kind of people.
Makes sense. Huh? Iron sharpens iron.
Mm.
If you're surrounded by all these experts, then you really kind of get thrown into the deep end of, man, what I thought I knew is actually so little, and eventually you'll get up there, which is climbing Mount Stupid, and then you have this point of realization how little you know. Then your confidence in the thing goes down. But then after years and years and years of immersing yourself in the field, you kind of get the expertise, and you kind of get the earned confidence or knowledge to really speak about it.
And it's crazy how fast that happens, because so as you say, you kind of start at this peak of not knowing anything and thinking you know everything, and you go down very quickly as soon as you start actually looking into it. And I don't know if I'm at this stage yet, but I have more doubts now, not about what I'm doing, but like how I'm doing it. So I start questioning myself, which is very, very useful. It's very important, obviously. So I start questioning myself, and I'm sure I'm getting along somewhere on the kind of probably the plateau, or the kind of, I wouldn't say the up curve yet, you know, where you know a lot and not think you know too much. But it's a very quick process, because it looks like this is just a graph, and it looks like, oh, that's years and years of mastering a certain craft. And I'm sure it's a fact that 10,000 hours of training make you a master at the craft, and I've only probably put in a couple of hundred, so I'm very far from where I need to get eventually, where I want to get eventually. But people do need to realize that it doesn't take that long to put 10,000 of hours of training into something that you really love doing. If you, because I was taking classes, I was going to the library, I was making sure that I was at least 8 hours of every day of mine were spent behind books, which I was totally not interested in, but I was making sure I was spending those 8 hours a day behind those books. Coming back to my place, I was putting all the extra time of arriving there and having eaten before I go to bed. So that's like 3 hours, 4 hours every evening. While I was doing medicine, I was doing 3-4 hours every evening. So I mean, that's like 20 hours a week at least. Well, and then you have the weekend, so you have more time as well. But so this adds up very quickly if you put the time in. And people need, this is something people need. I want people to know this. I've only been doing this for 9 months, and I still have a very long way to go, but I'm already really achieving certain things right now in my life, which I haven't even imagined I could do. And I'm very, even if nothing happens, I'm already very proud of where I've gotten to this point. And it's just because I put a couple of hours of work in every day. This is like, needs to sink into me, because it's like such an unachievable thing to do. Apparently, it looks like it is. It looks like, wow, like no real big artist has come out of Belgium in the last couple of years. I hope I didn't offend anyone, because well, outside of Belgium. I mean, obviously it's Dutch, so like you don't have a super big audience, but really international people. And for me, like the music, like it was just like, wow, I would love doing that, but no one has done it the way that I want to do it, at least.
It's true.
And so it's very easy to get lost in the idea of this is unachievable because no one has done it. But you have to just realize, like, you love doing this, so you can put the work in you can easily put the work in. And maybe it's just because of the fact that no one has put the work in. Maybe that's why no one's done it. So like, just put the work in, and then you can achieve like crazy things.
Kind of like the Bruce Lee quote, huh? He said something similar to, I'm not afraid of the guy that trained 1,000 kicks in one day. I'm afraid of the guy that trained one kick every day for 1,000 days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Keep putting in the little consistent work, then
resilience.
The machine gets more oiled, and it gets more fluid, and it gets more it just flows easier, I guess.
Yeah,
You know? You
yeah.
just,
Allow it
if
to
you
flow.
want to allow it to flow.
Allow
exactly.
it to flow. We're making some good links here.
There you go. It's coming full circle.
Yeah. It's like the comedy yesterday where like I was just like, so he was talking about his first he's like, well, all my stories are true. Then he's talking about how his sister died at the age of 9, and then all of a sudden he starts talking about like, oh, my sister's talking about like how his sister was alive, and I was like, well, this makes no sense. And then like after that, the punchline's like, okay, and then the punchline's an awful emotional. Well, it's not awful. It's a very emotional punchline.
It's
saying
hysterical.
Like she died.
Daniel Sloss is a fucking great comedian.
Yeah, but
Jesus
like full
Christ.
circle, this interesting links. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's comedy and songwriting. I think there's a lot of parallels that you can draw.
Any art, really. I mean, any skill. I mean, even science. You come to a point where you are so skilled in what you're doing, and you have such an interest. You have such an understanding and interest for a certain subject that you kind of. I mean, an artist creates. That's what an artist does. A comedian creates laughter, and a musician creates sounds. A painter creates visuals, and a scientist creates creates knowledge. I mean, obviously we all have our own knowledge, but creates knowledge for humanity. So any skill at a certain level, I guess, is art. I mean, that's a bit too cliche to say, I guess, but it is an art. Like every skill is, yeah.
Yeah, you need to put in. I mean, I think in every endeavor that you put out there, there's a certain degree of creativity. Creativity. Well,
if you're
in
doing
essence, is art.
Yeah, and if you're doing something that hasn't been done before, it automatically becomes creativity.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Who would your dream collaboration be?
Daniel Caesar. There is no need to... Shout out to Daniel Caesar. I love this guy. I don't know if he saved my life. That's probably a big statement and bold statement to make. But actually, no, he did. Well, because... yeah, he did kind of. Because hearing his music for the first time, because I do have a very soft voice. And I try to portray myself as this very tough character because I am very aware of my vulnerabilities. I am aware that I don't know everything. I'm aware of that, but it's always easier to just portray yourself as this person who knows everything or whatever, or is really tough, so that people don't challenge you, because I'm already challenging myself enough. But hearing Daniel Caesar's music, hearing first of all this guy with this so smooth voice and fully accepting that, and also talking about vulnerable situations, like it's like, wow, like I can do that without being super conscious. I'm conscious about it, but I'm not held back, I guess. So yeah, Daniel Caesar would be, even if nothing were to come out of this studio session, which I could imagine that's often the case, because I'm a fanboy of his, so I kind of idolize this guy in my head unknowingly, and then once I do meet him in person, because if I'm working, if I keep doing what I'm doing, like I know I'll get there. I know I will work with him at some point. I even sent the guy an email before I even got signed, saying like, you're gonna hear my music on the radio at some point. I just want you to know that all of my music is inspired by you. Like I still have the email. And one of the things I want to do, if I were to get into a negotiation with a major label, like there's gonna be two conditions. There's one, it's gonna be like, get this shit done now, because I don't want to wait. Like waiting is a skill for sure, but sometimes there's no point waiting. You need to get shit done quick. And the second would be that Daniel Caesar needs to read that email. He doesn't need to reply, but he needs to know that I wrote this email on the 15th of January this year, like not even having contacted my producer, like, you know. So even if nothing were to come out of the studio session because of my idolization of him, and I'll probably be very emotional and whatever, just the fact that I would be in the room with someone who, seems so inaccessible. I mean, he's an artist. It's a one-sided relationship always. Like, you know, once you go into have a public life, it's a very one-sided relationship where the fan thinks they know you, whereas you have no idea who they are. And so I feel like I know this guy, and like I'll go there, and then but just being able in the same room as this guy you who really kind of was an anchor point for me in the time that I lost my best friend. So this goes very, very deep down. Like just being in the room with someone like that is just like, I think if once I've met this guy in person, like there's no holding me back. Like that's a dream.
And the Grammys are just gonna start
That it's
streaming
a
in,
dream.
and you're gonna pull
Like
a Jay-Z pouring champagne in the Grammy.
it's a dream.
Sculling
Like
it.
you manifest this dream, and once you start manifesting things that you really wished you would have done, that's when you start realizing like, wow, like you can actually do that with everything if you really put the work in. Like that's Daniel Caesar for sure. Yeah,
That's
I love him.
dope, man. Please see this.
Please
reach out to me. I'm gonna take a very quick. Alrighty, we're back after a little short
yes.
break. So we were just talking about Daniel Caesar, and that's a pretty cool thing to have in mind for the future of like a little milestone you want to achieve.
Yeah.
Are there any other different goals or things you have set in sight that you want to manifest?
Yeah, well, as we were saying earlier, like a lot of our dreams seem inaccessible, but once you start really manifesting one of them, like you realize that these are all achievable things if you put the work in again. But it is also very important for me personally, and I think it should be for everyone, to be ambitious about what you want to do, to really push yourself to your full potential. So often we have very ambitious goals that we're afraid of sharing because we think they sound stupid. When in fact,
I'm thinking of a couple of myself right now. When you
but when in fact,
yeah.
once you start realizing that, you know, these are actually achievable things, and you actually, so first there's a couple of, I think there's like 3 stages or something of doing this. Is first you recognize your dreams, your ambitions. First you recognize them, then you tell yourself that this is what you want to do. These 2 steps are quite easy because this is nothing public. Third step is the most difficult one. It's actually having the fucking balls to tell other people that this is what you want to do. And it's almost kind of forcing yourself in a way to not back down, to really, you're like putting this kind of, not obligation, but you're like putting it out there like, yo, I'm an ambitious person, I want to do this. And I just said it. So you have the choice of either being a blatant liar and just being a dick. I mean, we all have friends who have a big mouth, you know, they keep running and I'm not saying that. Yeah. But so it's either being a liar or being just someone who really chases their dreams. So for me, I'm very ambitious. I am aware of this. My first goal is a Grammy. And I think this is something achievable. And again, like there has not been a single artist in the history of in Belgian history who has won a Grammy. And so it's like, wow, no one's done it. Why are you thinking that you can do this? Well, because probably no one has put that kind of work in.
And you've kind of done something similar to that before. I mean, I know you didn't want to mention this, but at the school you were at in England, you had this military aspect of the whole thing, and you've been the youngest warrant officer, if I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was
in the history of that school, which is like 200 years old.
I mean, I don't know how old it actually is, but I was in lower 6th, which is the last to final year, which is very unusual because normally the head of the contingent is someone in the last year, because I mean, they're just the oldest and they have the most responsibility and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So I kind of forced myself to take on, I like taking responsibility for my actions, so I enjoy taking on responsibilities, and so it made sense that I would go on to do that. But going back to the previous point, because there's three very distinct goals that I feel like I need to achieve in order to be really, really proud of what I have done with the time that I have on this planet are, so first it's a Grammy I don't even care if it's not for my song, but I need, or I mean, not my voice, but I think my story, my pen, will develop to a point where this is an achievable goal, first of all. Second goal would be to be able to, at some point towards the end of my career, no matter how long it is, or even after my career, to be able to write a book on songwriting, because one of the first, because I saw, again, like I'm a scientific minded person. I'm an academically educated person. So it makes a lot of sense for me to, when I started writing, to really read a lot of books about songwriting, to see how other people were doing this, and not necessarily like really specific tips, tips and tricks, I guess, but more of mind space and allowing the flow and structuring of songs. And that just helped me so much, that I have learned all this stuff from these people, and I've done a lot of learning on my own. And combining those two things, and really just giving back to the community of young people like me, myself, who really are looking for this book where it might kickstart something that they have dreamt about doing all this time, and being able to kind of like explain it in a accessible way, I guess. So writing a book, that's the second one. And the third one would be, if my finances allow it, and I have made the right contacts within the music industry, I would like to start an academy in Belgium that very personally develops a young artist who has not had the opportunities that I've been given, mainly being private lessons from very good teachers. And this is guitar I'm talking about. So I had a lot of very good private guitar teachers, and that just meant that my skill was, it just was elevated by these inspirational people. And I'm aware that many people don't get these opportunities. So again, being able to kind of give back to the community, where there are a lot of young, very visionary people in any society, especially in Belgium, but there's just no structure to kind of support them the right way. So having an academy that would be free of charge for them, to kind of really bring up the artist in them, I guess. So those are three very distinct things that I want to work towards, that I am working towards, that I want to achieve. Yeah.
That's so sick, man. Especially the giving back part, because there's abundance in the world, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if everyone keeps giving.
Yeah, for sure. To take a very abrupt turn in the conversation, earlier we mentioned that the death of your good friend, Ona, was so majorly impactful in your life.
Yes.
And I know that you had a very special relationship with this girl.
Yes.
And even like 10 days before she passed, she gave you this picture of you two with a kind of poem on the back.
Yes.
And it mentioned death, and you know I don't know what exactly was written on there.
Yeah.
But it mentioned death, and then apparently you guys had serious talks about the afterlife and what might be and what might not be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, because you are a very contemplative person, and I was wondering, because we mentioned it yesterday.
Yeah, but I didn't answer.
I asked you the question, but you know, we're gonna keep
I wasn't
the
allowed to
answer
answer
for today.
Yeah.
So I wanna kind of, what's your take on it?
Well, I think first of all, context is pretty important. So this is a girl that I met when I was 11, and had a very, even though I wasn't physically around her very much, because once I was 14, I went to the UK, so there was a physical distance between us, but the mental connection was interesting. It was very, very interesting. And as you said, like a couple of months before she passed away, we actually went surfing in Spain together. unknowingly. It was also both on board X, like very coincidentally, like they were sharing the tent next to us, or well, almost next to us. But anyway, so they were there as well. I mean, she was there as well. So it kind of like ignited this whole like reconnection, and it was at this point where I hadn't ever met anyone my age, because she was my age, which is very interesting because I'd never met anyone my age who was that mature or who was able to talk about these subjects with the same kind of rational way of thinking that I enjoy in most people I converse with. But we started talking about afterlife, and we started talking about all these kind of things, and a lot of jokes, mainly jokes. And then 10 days before she passed away was it was 12 days actually before after my birthday, but I think my birthday party was 2 days after my birthday. So 7th of March, I saw her among a couple of other friends, and as a present, which is to this day still one of the most beautiful. I mean, my sister buying me tickets to go see Daniel Caesar live was probably one of them. It was one of the most important presents or most beautiful presents I ever got. But what Ona gave me was just a Polaroid printout of a picture of us together in Spain, and it on the back sheet, and this is 10 days before she passed away, which is so weird to think about. But on the back she wrote, "Hey Benjamin, although you're 18, like you just turned 18, and although you're already very mature, we're still gonna celebrate the symbol of becoming an adult, whatever. Not that you instantly become an adult when you're 18 or before or after, whatever. To many years of friendship and philosophy, because who knows what comes after death." And she gave me that 10 days before she passed away, which was really weird because when I got the news that she passed away, I was actually in the gym in the UK. My dad called me, and I just ran back to my room, like just my heart just got ripped out or something. I don't know. It just felt weird. And the first thing I just saw in my room, because I had hung the picture up above my bed, and the first thing I saw was that picture, and I turned it around, and it's all of a sudden wow, this is weird. I'm very, very scientifically based. Again, I'm very academically educated, so I tend to look at most things that I can't explain for myself, using my scientific knowledge to make an educated guess as to what's happening that I don't understand. But seeing that picture and rereading what she had written on it was a very, very contradictory experience to what I had believed about what happens after death before that, because science. I love science. Thank you. Biology, chemistry, I love that kind of stuff. I love the very sober view on reality, and then you're confronted with this kind of very spiritual question. So it's interesting, and it made me think about myself a lot. It made me think about what happened to her even more so. But I had a couple of very interesting experiences after her passing away, which led me to kind of formulate my own opinion about this whole matter of what happens after death. And one of these things is there's a song called Red River, which you've heard before, but again, this is probably going to be something that's not going to be released for a while. But but this is a song about this dream that I'm actually going to talk about, where it's very interesting. So I was sitting, and again, I'm very scientific, very, very sober-minded. So but dreams are not something you control, or at least I'm not able to control. So I was sitting in the sports complex of my school at the time. I was sitting with Tommy in. I was actually practicing rugby. I was training, and on the other side of the court there was her and her ballerina friends, because she was very into ballet. She was beautiful, so elegant. Beautiful dancer. And so I'm just playing rugby on this side, she's training her ballet performance on the other side, and all of a sudden lights go out, stage appears, rows and rows of seats, And this was really weird because it was in a familiar place with familiar people, apart from her being there as well. And it felt very, very raw. And so these seats appear, and like Tommy appears all of a sudden, my best friend from Korea. And so we're sitting next to each other on the front row, and there's like 3 girls sitting like behind us to the right, and they're like, I'm just like looking the whole time because I knew she was going to come on stage, because I knew this was going to be a performance of hers, even though I wasn't told. Like, it just made sense that if a stage appears out of nowhere, she's going to be on it. So I'm just looking around, and these girls like behind me, like they start like giggling. It's like, oh, like, is there someone you know that's like going to perform? I was like, yeah, oh no, my best friend. So I'm really hyped about seeing her. And so she comes on stage as one of the first girls, standing all the way in the front. And so they're doing their routine, really beautiful. And I'm just sitting there like just really starstruck, well, almost starstruck, because I hadn't seen this girl for a long time, like in real life. Like, I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she was gone. So it was weird to really see her that clearly again. And so she was dancing, and she was looking into the audience, and obviously I was sitting on the first row, so she saw me, and they were doing the performance, and she just turned her back to us, and she just held her hands, like she held her head in her hands, and I guess she was crying. So Tommy looks at me and he's like, Ben, like, you need to do something about this. So, I mean, dream logic, I just jump on stage in the middle of the fucking performance. Everyone stops, and like I just hold her, like I'm just like, what's happened? Like, what happened? I just hold her, and she, tears in her eyes, and it's really weird because I see this very visually, like this is very clear in front of, this is really there for me. And she looks at me with tears in her eyes, and the same vibrant energy as I used to know her. And she just goes, I really feel so stupid saying this. I know it's too late, but I wanted to say that I love you. And I was so taken back by that, because for the past couple of years I had actually been in love with this girl, but when we reconnected, she was with someone else, and I respected that and everything, so I didn't go too deep into it. But I was very much in denial of my feelings for her. And so I had this dream where she, like, all of a sudden she's like, well, yeah, I love you. And then she's like, Ben, answer me, like, tell me that you love me. Like, I know you need to tell me this. Like, she just says, like, straight up, like, you need to tell me this. So, like, I'm just holding her, like, yeah, like, I love you too. And so she hugs me, and the performance is done, and she stopped crying. The performance is done, and she walks off stage, and we're still sitting in our chairs. I mean, I'm still sitting in my chair again. She walks off stage, and like all this line of ballet dancers like walks out of the door one by one, and she's the last one in line. And like just before she leaves the door, she looks back at me, and she just like smiles, she just smiles, and then she turns back around, and she just walks through the door. And all of a sudden it sinks in to me that, holy fuck, that was her, like she was here, and I need to see her. Like I don't want to lose her. So I jump up from my chair, and I run towards the door, and I open the door, and it's just blinding white light. There's nothing behind the door, and I'm just like, fuck, she's gone. So I close the door, and I think that was probably the first time I just woke up instantly after that, and the first time that I realized, like, fuck, first of all, she's gone. That's a big one. And second of all, I loved her. That's another really, really, really big one. So yeah, there's this, I just wrote this beautiful song about this experience, this dream of this, called Red River, and there's like a part in it like, need to make my way up to the door, only then I'll be fine. I've been walking through this corridor, I know this moment is mine. And it's like all these references to this dream, and for some reason, like, just this dream was so raw to me, even 2 years after it happened, that I was able to feel this really pure emotion because of her presence in my dream. And that experience, including a couple of other really weird things, so that experience with her saying 10 days before she passed away, like, let's see what happens after death. These are two pillars, kind of, which I've built this idea about what happens after death, where I am
very sober-minded, but it's a weird thing. In this whole world right now, there's really only one place which, not being under the influence of anything, I can be very calm in my head, and that's near her. That's when I'm sitting next to her grave, and it's just this really weird. And I'm sure it probably has something to do with the way the human brain kind of reacts to trauma like that.
That's your science brain kicking in right there.
Sorry?
That's your science brain kicking
Yeah,
in.
well, exactly. So again, very sober-minded, but then so it's a weird kind of spiritual thing, and also the fact that I do know that I am very interested in science and everything. I also am very aware of the fact that the consciousness is not something that has been measured in any way. And this is like looking for extraterrestrial life. Like we've been looking for a long, well, not a long time. This is very new developments if you look at the time that we have had technology. But so we've been looking for a while. We've never found anything that like could even point us towards any direction, basically. So I'm very aware of the fact that consciousness is not something that's physically measurable with the materials that we have right now. And I don't think it will be for a very long time. If at all, even, I don't know. But these experiences have really kind of made me firmly believe, because, I mean, when your best friend and person you love passes away and you're still very young, I mean, even if you're not still very young, but at any time in life, it's really a moment of silence and of retreat in towards yourself, a lot of thinking. So I've had a lot of time to really discuss this with myself, and I guess using these experiences I've had up to this point, I have come to the conclusion for myself, and I don't really care what anyone else thinks about it, because for me this is like very soothing to know that there's a certain energy that is not physically measurable. It's like I guess love, if you want to, or I mean, there's religious people would call it God. Other people, I mean, it's soul,
consciousness, or spirit, or
So there's this energy which is continuous within the universe. It's like this. It's almost like, you know, they're still looking for certain waves which would make gravity fit into the general equation of relativity. Like, and it's like it hasn't been found yet. And well, actually, the boson Higgs has been found, but there must be a certain wave which is not perceivable to us, which is eternal, which is continuous, which is what makes a living animal a living, breathing thing a conscious thing. And I don't think it doesn't change if the physical body's finished. Like,
I agree, and I don't have any personal experience that comes close to anything like this. But I do believe that if connections between people can be so strong and raw and powerful, that sometimes it can transcend death, and it can transcend time and maybe space. Like, I'm not a scientific guy at all. I'm a moron. But and this is all anecdotal, there's nothing to prove this, and I told you this yesterday, but I'm very interested in psychedelics and how this can influence mental health.
Yes.
And while developing this big interest of mine, I've spent hundreds of hours on YouTube.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, YouTube is filled with people that believe the earth is flat as well. So the school of YouTube is
vegans.
And vegans. And vegans.
No disrespect. Only the Facebook ones.
Yeah, only the Facebook vegans, and a lot of disrespect from me. But I've spent so much time watching videos of people with near-death experiences.
Yes.
And I think the study of this is called Thantology. I'm butchering it.
I have no idea.
I'll put it on screen, whatever. Yeah. Of near-death experiences, and then people who decide to put forth their psychedelic experiences, which is very often an incredibly high dose. And I can't help but notice that there's similarities between these
Yes.
things. That people, that there's this video of a guy that was in a car crash
Yep.
in the I don't know 70s or 80s, and he's describing his experience, and then he's talking about the shining darkness, and then there's this video of a 2015 guy who thinks that he dies, and he sees this shimmering blackness that he describes when he thinks that he dies. And there's this is one thing, but there's certain elements that reoccur, and you've got out of body experiences as well that, like, for me, it doesn't switch into every part from out of body experiences and these reports to life after death. But for me, it makes kind of sense that if these things, if people across the board and across countries and across oceans report the same things, and across different times as well, that there must kind of be something. And if there is such a thing as a soul, or such a thing as a consciousness, that with near-death experiences it can observe itself in the flesh form, from kind of like a third person view, that there is something. I like, again, there's no personal experience, but hearing so many personal accounts of this and these dreams, and I think it's also kind of human to think that it goes on.
Obviously, it makes the whole idea of death much more easy to deal with. Well, beautiful, but easy to deal with. I mean, it's part of life, and life is not always beautiful. So, but we are, as a species, very good at kind of not idolizing, but just giving it a new layer of color and just pretending that it's a new object, basically. But I don't know, I find it, and this is very contradictory to what I just said, to what I personally believe as well, but it's also important to, well, first of all, realize that it's easier to believe that there's something after this than to not believe it, because it's soothing. It reduces, well, I don't know, it's just soothing. But second of all, like, all these near-death experiences and everything are experienced in a state of, well, I mean, life. I mean, it's just there still. I mean, obviously, no one who died has come back.
Only Jesus has.
Only Jesus. Well, and some other prophets who came before him who look exactly the same, and no one realizes. But whatever. These are all These are all stories of people who have come back, and I personally feel that, like, and we said this yesterday, that it would make a lot of sense that you have all these chemicals in your brain which are not being released at all, or in very slight forms like DMT when you're dreaming. And I don't know why, and we talked about this yesterday, and we didn't actually find any facts or anything, but I for some reason remember reading something or whatever about the fact that when the actual moment of death is a very chemically rich event in your brain, like loads of stuff gets released in there, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of DMT in there as well, and it makes sense because your brain is the operating system behind your whole visceral body, and it makes sense for this operating system to really kind of like, not like maybe reboot, I guess, in a way, maybe, but to shut down, for like to actually just shut down for a while, and by like to be able to do that efficiently, you need to first put to rest every visceral part of you. So at the moment of death, I feel like it would make sense that all these chemicals get released to kind of like allow your body to accept it. Like, you don't even need to mentally accept it, but you probably, if you're just tripping balls, you probably are accepting it, but because there's no fucking choice but to accept it. But yeah, your body just relaxes completely, and I think that might probably be a moment where you start like seeing yourself out of body experience. And because my mom, I told you this as well, my mom was hit by a car twice. I think first time when she was 15, she had multiple skull fractures. She was deaf in her, I think in her left ear. No, in her left ear, for a very long time, until she finally got surgery not too long ago. But she was basically left there to kind of bleed out, I guess. I don't know, dying basically. she was brought to the hospital, and this is my mom as well, who's also a doctor, who's also very scientifically educated. She actually, as you said, she describes an experience of seeing her own body laying there and kind of floating against the ceiling, and kind of seeing all these people she didn't even know like walk up to her and give her a hug, and like just like, oh, like, welcome, you know, like just very, very friendly, very loving, very accepting. And it's weird because scientific knowledge does not in any way support these ideas. And as you say, like there's loads of people around the world who come forward with the similar ideas. So I guess that does kind of, even though it's contradictory to my belief, it does kind of support it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it brings up the kind of discussion of, is it just brain chemistry, or is it kind of a chemical gateway to something that we have?
Well, I mean, can't they be both?
No means of measuring. Like, there's no machine that can put a measure tape around consciousness, or can put it on a weight scale. Or can put it in a scientific, trial that looks for repeated same results. I don't think that's...
Well, it did happen in, I think it was in 19th century somewhere, where there was this French doctor who he took in patients who were dying of tuberculosis, and he weighed them just before death, during death, and after death, and he came up with 12 grams, but actually looking, like investigating the research, the actual paper, the numbers, makes no sense, because this is based on, I think it was like 3 patients. He only tested 12 patients, and only 3 patients had somewhat reliable results, because some even like gained weight. Like, it makes no sense.
And also, what kind of accuracy does a weight measuring device have?
Exactly.
That time?
And if you think about it as well, this is a funny one, because if you were to say that you lose, like, let's go with the idea that you lose 12 grams when you die, so your consciousness weighs 12 grams in some weird way.
I don't think it has a weight if it were to exist.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Definitely
But
does exist.
say if it did have a weight, this is a funny one, because 12 grams, right? So it gets subtracted from your body. But so on its own, it's 12 grams. But because of the fact it doesn't have a physical mass, I guess, well, it goes down. Like it has gravitational pull. And I were to think, if you were religious and you believe in a soul and everything, I would hope that your soul goes up to heaven and not down to, wherever you believe.
To the fiery depth of the magma core of the earth.
So that's an interesting one. Let's hope that the soul doesn't have a weight, because
let's hope it's negative in weight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it would make more sense that you gained weight if you died. But anyway, yeah.
It's a discussion that you can have 1,000 times with 1,000 different people
and
never have an answer. But it's still very fascinating to contemplate. Yeah. Death is a weird one. I'm happy that there's trials now with the psychedelic research coming out, that cancer patients are getting access to, I think recently in Canada, either 4 or 12 dying patients were, without this being a scientific research setting, they were granted access to psilocybin to kind of die with dignity and die with peace of mind, because in scientific trials it's been shown that people with like near-death anxiety, who are just being consumed by the harsh reality of death, that they have a much more tranquil way out when have access to these compounds and this kind of infrastructure. So I'm happy that that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the whole industry behind it is, I'm really stoked that you are so passionate about working in that industry, because it's such a young, it's a very fertile breeding ground for a lot of young, very visionary people, and it's so beneficial to humanity. Like, well, as I was saying like earlier, like Elon Musk, crazy. This guy's like came straight out of an action movie or whatever, and he is making the vehicles for humanity to kind of just go up to the next step of evolution, almost. Not even almost, like actually, like with Neuralink and everything, like that's a whole another development in humanity. But as you said, like you can have all these fancy spaceships and everything. You can have the best vehicles to get to new planets, but if what's carrying the vehicle is diseased, like you are actually spreading a virus, like like planetary,
Interstellarly, yeah.
interstellar virus. And so this, I think, the industry of psychedelics is, probably one of the most efficient and most altering things that we can do for the mental health of the general world population, probably.
I think so too.
Yeah. So
if they
interesting.
were as socially accepted as alcohol, which is way more damaging, I really truly believe that the world would be a better place. And that maybe like the utopian stupid 23-year-old in me that still believes in ideologies and like possibilities of utopia, but I really kind of believe that they have a very big potential to make an impact.
And I mean, not even that, like just the fact that we are grown-ups, I guess. We live in a free society, yet we're not allowed to take these things, as you said, which are far less dangerous than alcohol and tobacco, which are so socially accepted, just because of the fact that there's a lot of money blocking research, blocking progress, blocking anyone from even attempting to look into it. And that just doesn't make sense. Like, even if it doesn't change much to the society, like the fact that you are able to do these things, like it would make it free, make people free.
I think so too. I mean, across all continents, there's been histories, even in the Western world, of traditions with psychedelics that have. I read this book about the Eleusinian Mysteries, which is a Greek tradition that went on for nearly 2,000 years, where people were only allowed to do it once. They kind of went on a bedevaart, pilgrimage.
Yes.
To this place in Greece, and they partook in this ceremony where people like Plato came out, and that kickstarted his whole philosophical
and advances humanity.
It really does. And then you look at Amazonian traditions where this is seen as medicine, and it connects you to nature and actually things that really matter, the people around you, your friends, what you do in life, what you contribute to. And I think it can really help once this is at a scale of acceptance as alcohol is, and is as accepted in the like mental health world. This can really help on a big scale.
Yeah, I think it's just an essential part of development. Like it's catching up to technology, basically, where we have this incredible leap in computing power, for instance, and you've got AI and everything, but you're really leaving behind the creators of this technology. So it's catching up with tech. Yeah, I see it that way. Yeah, definitely.
Do you have an opinion on AI?
On AI,
do you think Skyworld's gonna happen and the Terminator will just rise up from the earth and kill humanity to save the planet, or
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I talked about Elon Musk just now and with Neuralink and everything, because obviously in medicine, like, ethics is a very important part. It's not a very big part of it, but it's a very important part, that you are aware of ethics in general, or at least the medical ones. And AI obviously is a very potent tool for the development of healthcare. So we were given the task to like just find something which is AI related and to kind of discuss that in front of the rest of the year. And I came forward with Neuralink, where absolutely crazy. This guy, like, so Elon Musk, he actually gave a presentation of the Three Little Piggies, like I think it was last week or something, where they actually showed live animals with Neuralinks already installed, not doing anything specifically, but actually constantly measuring brainwave activity and everything. So it's very, I mean, it won't be available for human consumption in the very, very near future, but it will be in the near future. And if we embrace this kind of technology, I think we can be very cooperative. Like we can live in symbiosis, I guess, with these very rapidly advancing technologies, because I feel that a lot of people are like, they have this idea of like AI, but then they also have this idea of self-superiority, where they think, I'm human, I'm much smarter than any animal on this planet, so I must also be smarter than AI, which is such an understatement, because as soon as AI gets to a level where it can actually really educate itself, there's no stopping it. It has all the data that we have, but it just processes it in such a high level that like there's nothing we can do to even come close to that. So I think it's really important to be able to embrace that and live alongside it, instead of having half of the world population really going with the flow and then the other half being like, oh, 5G causes cancer, like it's just, I mean, it's a fact though, or it causes coronavirus, which is like even more absurd. Yeah, so
I saw this article of just debunking this beautifully, that there's only like 17 towers of 5G spread across the whole world, yet Corona is a global pandemic. How the fuck does that make sense? If there's only 17 distributors.
Well, because they've been doing this for years underground, bro. Like, I'm telling you.
It's the deep state.
It's the deep, yeah.
It's the deep state, man.
But
it's the Illuminati that
yeah.
World dominance.
But yeah, AI, I do have. I am cautious about it, because I don't know if society is ready for it. And it's like this one thing, like it's a Pandora's box. Like you open it, like as soon as this stuff is out there, like there is no holding it back, because it's a digital kind of consciousness almost.
Worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. There's no. I mean, you'd have to like get like some serious solar flares or something to really shut down everything that's electronic on Earth to be able to stop that stuff. And even then, maybe by that time, like it will have developed itself so much that it's built its own casing, which that but anyway, this is apocalyptic stuff. But I don't know if society is completely ready to embrace it by the time that it is ready to be released. So it does kind of frighten me somewhat that we won't be super synchronized with it and then it won't pull humanity forward as much as it could do. But I don't think it's a bit too dark and pessimistic for me to think that all robot, like your fridge will kill you or something, like
it'll just transform.
No, or like it's just gonna smash your head
beam
against the thing, like once you're looking at yeah. So I don't feel that there's any real beneficial reason to kind of think about that stuff, but it is a very interesting topic to talk about, obviously. I just try not to spend too much of my time wondering about worst case scenarios, I guess.
I'm gonna make you wonder about it though. What if, well, let's say 10 years, right, and it's been tested, Neuralink, the little rice sized chip, it's been tested, it's completely safe, there's no health negatives around it, and like you get an email from Musk saying, hey man, I fucking loved your collab with Daniel Caesar, congrats on the Grammy, by the way. My daughter's got a birthday party, you want to come play, you come play a few tunes for his daughter. You get to chat with the man and he says, hey man, like I really appreciate your music and thanks for doing this, I really appreciate it. Would you like to have a little free surgery and get the chip into your brain? It's free of charge, man. Like, and you can always take it out whenever you want.
Yeah. So you're asking me whether I would get Neuralink? Yeah, sure, obviously, because first of all, like the way that he's developed it, and they're still developing it, it's almost all automated. It's very, very low risk, surgery wise. It's also already been in these pigs for like a couple of months now, and they have no side effects. And I think it's important to have as many test subjects as possible at the start of this kind of massive technological advance. And I would willingly be a test subject. It's also like, it's a question of if this same guy would ask you to go to Mars right now, be one of the first,
colonists to actually stay there and not have any way to return,
I would tell them to fuck off.
Seriously, I would actually go. I would take it.
Dude, I would go if I'm... How long does it take to go to Mars? I think like 2 years, 3 years.
I have no idea, to be honest. I don't know.
I think they did
time.
like these training simulations where guys had to be locked up for like 3 years. I've got no fucking clue.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do it, but like at 70 plus years, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, but then you're of no benefit to the colony. They need
a wise man who can give them wisdom.
Yeah, but
and I'll happily
age
do
is
that.
not wisdom. This is also another very
true.
important.
Life experience is wisdom.
Life experience is wisdom. Well, and just what is but no, seven. No, because no, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I would be
65.
I'll
lower
21
myself
tomorrow. What? Yeah. Well,
Really?
That's a
Really?
joke. I'm
How are you going to collab with Daniel Caesar when you're at Mars? Come
Well,
on.
that would be interesting. Live stream performances and whatever.
First intergalactic performance.
No, but this is because I am currently doing what I love doing, so I guess it is an anchor point for me on this earth. But I'm sure if I wasn't doing music, and especially if I was still doing medicine, I would definitely go there. I mean, even if the spaceship blows up as soon as it leaves the launch pad, like you're still such a fundamental part of human evolution. Like you're the first people who were chosen to make a new human colony on a different planet. That's wow. That's like Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong kind of vibes almost. And I mean, who doesn't want to leave a legacy behind? Who doesn't want to have their name written in the history books? So yeah, I guess that's why I would do it.
What would be the first thing if you got to Mars?
I would do. Well, I'm sure
take a hike.
No, I would assume that the people that they send are first of all very disciplined. They follow a very, very strict routine, which is completely decided by experts in scientific fields that are related and everything. So I don't think there's any margin for me like just walking out, I don't know, just doing something random. But what would I do? Try to look at Earth, I guess. I don't know. There's
be a little speck in the distance.
Yeah. I look at the stars often at night, so I guess it would be the same there. But no, nothing specific. I would hope that they have good enough support for these people that they send there, that they don't need to decide on their own, like, oh, am I going to build this here or now or whatever. Like, I'm sure it all goes very smoothly.
Have you seen the Musk's presentation of... I think he first wants to launch in like 2024, and then by 2036 there's this little village. Have you seen the presentation?
I haven't seen the presentation. I've seen the designs of the spacesuits, but I haven't seen the presentation. No.
And it's so sci-fi. It's like this motherfucker has like 8 23rd century businesses going on.
Yeah.
He sold PayPal as one of the partners. He got 100 million. He put, I think, like 70 into SpaceX, 20 into Tesla, 10 into Solar City. Those are the 3 first. Then he's got Neuralink. He's got like OpenAI, I think it's called. He's got the Hyperloop. He's got the Boring Company.
And just loads of stuff in general.
Yeah, like this dude is like, imagine that we had 100 of him.
I think they would probably first of all buy their own country and then just
buy their own planet.
No, but I don't think humanity would be ready for even 2 Elon Musks. Too visionary. I mean, like if you look at Tesla, his ideas were already. I mean, they were. I think this guy developed technology which has been lost to us to this day, and mainly because of the fact that society was not ready for what he was bringing to the table. And I think Elon Musk is very similar in the sense that I'm sure this guy has even crazier ideas that are just so far out there that even with the amount of investment he can make, he wouldn't be able to make it work because it's just so far out there. Yeah.
He's an artist. Like you said, the analogy you made yesterday, like if you're an artist, you're this spring in the ground where just clear water just fucking gushes out uncontrollably.
One of those geysers.
It's up to the music industry and the producers to catch a little bit of that water and bottle it and sell it in the shelves. And it's like,
make it consumable.
Consumable because, like, man, when Mac Miller died, I started going through this YouTube rabbit hole of all like these studio sessions, his interviews, his little appearances here and there, and these friends at different studios said like, yeah man, like he recorded like 200, 300, 400 songs here that have like maybe 6 of them have seen the light of day.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I mean, if he would put the Neuralink chip in his head, if that would be downloadable, I think humanity would have such a library of Alexandria of idea and innovative concepts to just, because this guy is like a Dutch walking horse again. Like he's pulling the cart of humanity almost single-handedly just by his ideas and by his work ethic.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? That's probably why. Because are we talking about Mac Miller right now or Elon Musk?
Musk.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's also one of the reasons why he developed it in the first place, because he just knows that he's got too many ideas to be implemented right now, and for him to be able to store it on something digital or something with a higher bandwidth is more. Yeah, it's just beneficial for all of humanity. And at the end of the day, it is about bandwidth. Like, just emotions are very, very varied and very broad and very raw.
Colorful.
Yeah, and colorful and whatever. And words are just such a tiny
Limiting
it's such
way
a
of
limiting
expressing.
Exactly. So the bandwidth between those two is just too small, and so Neuralink like it improves that by like 1,000-fold or even more. So yeah, it would be a big library of just revolutionary ideas.
And that's what happened in the Bible. You know, humanity spoke one language and they were able to build this Tower of Babel to reach the heavens, and then God struck them down because they were just too good for their own good, I guess. But
yeah,
like
but I think that's just religion trying to keep their power.
Of course. Yeah. But like the metaphor is like, what could happen if there's no language barriers? What could happen if you can, because certain languages have certain words that don't exist in other languages because there's different connotations tied to this word, and what if that just all disintegrates like a Thanos snap of the fingers, and you can just communicate freely, and like Musk said, just broadens the bandwidth of information that you're able to receive. What with the brightest minds of Korea and India and the UK, France, Russia, you know, United States, what if they're all able to communicate so freely? Because science is, at the core of it is, it's not one person making a single-handed discovery. It's people standing on top of other people's shoulders.
Yeah, of course.
And it's a sharing of information that collectively works towards this new discovery.
Yeah. I mean, we have a very, I think, also a romanticized vision of scientists, because it's a fact that indeed, like, science evolves as communication frees up. But I mean, there's so many undercover scientific experiments and processes, whatever, that are either just too profitable for the country that they're being performed in, or they're too dangerous for the public to know about, or whatever. So there is still a big limit on communication. So it's a very romanticized idea to think that, like, oh, this guy in Russia discovered this protein, and if he were like, and he's going to share that with the rest of the world, but he doesn't, and like, because he doesn't do that, like, the rest, indeed, there's no stepping stone to build on there. I mean, not Russia specifically, but any country. Just first thing that came up with my mind. And I've imagined that with AI and with this kind of massive collection of intelligence, that it's probably going to be similar in a way. There's still going to be, bandwidth is going to improve, is going to broaden, but there's still going to be a cap on there set by people who want to remain in power, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and blessed are the meek. I mean, that's what the Bible says, literally. Like, it makes sense that it's just easier to rule, to dictate what someone else has to do if they have no knowledge of what's happening around them. So just keep people dumb by restricting, intelligence. So,
it will broaden the discussion and scientific gathering of information, but it's still going to be limited, I think.
You think it's going to happen in our lifetime?
AI or what?
Yeah, like the almost telepathic ability to speak and understand one another, because Musk said on the Rogan
with
Experience,
Neuralink,
yeah, he said 5 years. Of course, the guy is notorious for making up very ambitious goals for himself, and then he pushes them
back
2-3 years.
Yeah,
But he does get them.
Yeah.
So do you think it's going to be available?
Well, I think like telepathy is a very interesting. It's because it's a very always mystically. It's the word itself already makes you doubt its existence. But so I think it's not a very accurate description of what Neuralink would.
Well, it's just sending text messages without interacting with a phone.
Yeah, but I guess so. My idea of telepathy is different, and I would just think like, oh, you can read someone else's mind if they don't want to or whatever. But Neuralink is like where if you're both willing and able to share it, then yeah, you can do that. And I think of course that's. I'm pretty positive about that it's gonna happen within our lifetimes.
That we look back at our silly teens where we used this little rectangle device to send each other messages. You can just hear a ping.
I mean, that's already how how older generations see us. Like, because if you look at like very young kids now, like they get their iPad at the age of 3 or 4, and like they just already understand it so well, and it's already a symbiosis from a very young age. So I'm sure that we will, and not even if Neuralink doesn't happen, there will be other technological advances which will make us look at the younger generation the same way that the older generation is looking at us right now. I think big changes. I don't think we can imagine even what will happen by the time that we are 75, 80 and going to Mars.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a solar flare or a meteor hit, like we're going to look back at these times as this is the simplest it's ever going to be, and that was the simplest we'll ever know.
Yeah, but I think, first of all, as you're very young, life is pretty simple. You're just doing what you want to do and what you like doing or whatever. And time goes on, and humanity has this very interesting way of working against entropy where, chaos returns, but we're using this chaos to make everything more complex. So I think human evolution will always keep making complexity just more present. So it's always going to be more complex. So even, yesterday was more simple than it will be today, and then it will be tomorrow, and that's just the way it is. And that's a good thing, because that means that we are, as a species, working towards an interesting goal for us. I think that's I have no further thought to add to that.
I think that's a good conclusion. I think that's a very good conclusion, to work towards a better form of humanity, and then being able to spread it via Musk's.
Yeah, of course. Well, via Musk, but mainly start individually. It's just a fact that, to improve the world, you need to start with yourself. Like, put the work in. Again, I want that to be very clear to everyone, because Elon Musk is a very visionary person, and because he has manifested multiple of his goals. Now people are starting to latch on and being like, okay, this guy's really doing what he wants to do, and embodying the idea of who he wants to be. But you have to put the work in, and humanity will find ways to make complexity rule over simplicity. But that is only if we keep putting the work in, and that's a good thing. Complexity is a good thing, because it gives you choice. It gives you freedom to do what you want to do. Yeah.
True. And on that note, I think we've had a great conversation.
Yes, I thank you for having me.
I want to thank you for your time, dude. Thank you so much for the weekend, for sharing the very exciting project you've got going on. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm really fucking stoked for next month.
Yeah.
When your first single drops.
Yeah, so am I.
It's well, no, I don't want to say too much about the timeline, but about when the big project arrives. Man, I'm super fucking stoked and excited for you, because I mean, it kind of makes sense, and I've got so much confidence in that you're just gonna fucking ride it till the wheels go off.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I
Make
mean,
the
I
best
have.
out of it.
Yeah. 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 I have nothing to add to that. That is. Yeah. I will work until I can no longer.
There we go.
So yes, thank you for having me. It's
Dude,
great.
always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, for sure. Let's not wait too long.
That's not indeed. Let's not wait too long.
We need to keep the exclusive content going.
Yeah, let's do it behind the scenes.
Yes, let's go.
All right, man. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.